Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are back in the Bismarck. And we have some things to talk about. So without further ado, let's get into our commander. Mr. Henry J. Hyde, our inspirations, Cunningham and Franz von Hipper. We are running Flammable Cannoneer. We are running Aladad, we are running Marksmanship, and we are running Master Mechanic, as well as running with Scissors. We are a level 16.2. In other words, we are a fully 16 commander with a legendary 2. So, why did I choose what I have chosen? Now, this is going to be a little bit different than a lot of your normal Meet the videos, but this is a revisit. We are revising what we have previously stated because things have changed, most notably in the newest patch. So, I wanted to do my due diligence, do justice to this ship. And so, some things have changed. Now, this is my setup for Henry J. Hyde. You'll notice that I am not running Porcupine, and I am not running the new perk. I'm not giving up 2 extra heals for extra reload time on my secondaries and enhanced secondary targeting duration. Okay? I'm just not doing it. However, I am focusing on secondaries elsewhere, mainly in our equipment. We are running the secondary mod 2 for our first. We have damage control as our second perk. We are running the target acquisition, as always, and secondary battery mod 3 in our final slot. Now, why did I choose these particular equipments? First of all, the secondaries are finally viable. I have done plenty of testing with it so far. Believe it or not, I have been running the Bismarck more in this past few days than I have run in the entire time it's been out. So I have a pretty good feeling for the secondaries in this since the update. And I will be real, they're working. They're still not where they should be as far as effectiveness goes, and I'll go over that in the actual video. But for everything else, I think that it is much, much better than it used to be. And so the reason we go with the secondaries in the equipment is to maximize our potential there. If we go to our loadout, we are running 5 heals. We have our 2 enhanced secondary targeting consumables rather than our planes. That is something that is very good on this particular ship. So we want to maximize it. I would like to see this go up to 3 and maybe reduce the cooldown time. But 2 is fine. I am running the Epic Battle Booster and, of course, the sonar on the Bismarck. Now, I could be wrong, but I remember the sonar on the Bismarck being 6-kilometer ship detection. Why is it only 4.4 now? When did that happen? Because that's always been like the biggest thing about the sonar on the German ships. Like that was the biggest reason the Bismarck had some sort of an advantage, was the fact that it had such a good sonar and it was, a battleship. But let's move on. We have 72,940 hit points with our Hyde build. 22% torp damage reduction, which is the same as the Azuma. If you guys remember me doing that video this week. Artillery. We have a firing range of 19.3 kilometers, which is massive. That's also thanks to the booster. The booster, I think, without it, I think it goes to 18.5. So, it's still very serviceable. You need some range. Even if you're not as accurate at range, you need the ability to not be outgunned by cruisers. You can still be outgunned by cruisers, but I'm just saying that you need the ability to reach out and touch people, and that's the one thing missing from the Celiax tank build, is the ability to reach out and touch people. Even if you're not as accurate. HE shell damage, none of that changes. The secondaries is where we get the bonuses. 10.3 kilometers. That is not maxed out, as we've discussed. But it is good enough. 10.3 kilometers is plenty. As well as the reload time is only 2.7 on the 105mm secondaries, and it is 6 seconds on the 150mm secondaries. I am going to be also checking out the gross occur first and seeing how those secondaries have changed as well, because the biggest difference between Bismarck and gross occur first is Bismarck has 105 in 150s, and the gross occur first has 128mm guns and 150mm guns as secondaries. So the gross occur first does more damage with each hit on secondaries than you get out of the Bismarck's secondaries, even though the Bismarck has more of them, I believe. But that's just because most of the Bismarck's secondaries are 105mm, which don't do a whole lot of damage. But they all have a chance to set fires. Maneuverability, as you can see, rudder shift time is 16 seconds. That's still not bad. Turning circle is 850 meters. That's pretty good for a battleship as well. Concealment shouldn't change, I don't believe. So all of this should be the same. So, without further ado, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we are on Sea of Fortune, and we're in the Bismarck. And you guys have already seen my build. So let's go over how I feel about the ship. First of all, I've been playing this ship since the update. I have played more games this week than I have played the entire time owning the ship. It is a long-held belief that I hate the Bismarck for no reason. That is not true. I hated the Bismarck because it was bad. That has been fixed. It is no longer a bad ship. It is viable. It is consistent. And that's what I've been advocating for the entire time. So, with that out of the way, let's get into this. Now, what is my initial thoughts on the secondary update? Now, this is something I said I would get into, so I like it. I like the direction that the game is heading in that sense. Finally making the secondaries relevant. I mean, instead of just being fancy fireworks that occasionally will get you a kill, like it's almost never been a useful tool until now. Like I said before, the one change that I still will be trying to get them to do is either updating the targeting AI of the secondaries so that it always focuses the closer ship and doesn't split the secondaries into multiple ships on the same side. So if you're sailing in between ships, you would still fire off of both sides of the ships at the targets. But I'm saying, like, if there are two ships off of my right side of my ship, off of the starboard side, I want it to focus the guy that's closer, or I want it to focus the guy that is the most likely to be hurt by them. And that is something that Wargaming can do, or just implement a manual targeting for the secondaries. So I can click on a ship with the targeting icon, and that's the person that the secondaries are going to target. That is something that I'm still pushing for. But, this is a huge step forward for the battleships. Far too long, people have been able to just YOLO battleships and get away with it. That is no longer necessarily the case. It's still not going to get them killed immediately. Like, if they're full health, they're not going to just lose all their health immediately to your secondaries and die before they YOLO torp you. That ain't how this works. However, it's definitely going to make them think twice, especially late game when they don't have as much health. But as you can see, we get a good armor-piercing salvo against the Venom, and the secondaries are already hitting them. Now, before, I might get a hit, maybe 2 hits on the Venom with my secondaries, but we've already got 4 hits, and we're about to stack up a couple more here. And this is just the first engagement, you know? And like I said, I've had several games where I have put up over 100,000 damage in the Bismarck just this week. Which is something that I struggled to do previously. And that is not only due to the fact that I am able to use secondaries to do damage, but also owes to the fact that the guns have improved, or at least they feel like they've improved to me, because I've been running Hyde for a long time, and I've never had my guns this accurate, and they are much more consistent than they were before. They're no longer a fire and hope. They're more of a, okay, I'm going to get a hit, I'm going to get 2 hits, or sometimes more than that. It's just, that is something that has been sorely lacking in the ship. It's not just a meme ship. It is a meme ship, don't get me wrong, but it's not just a meme ship. It is viable. And for those people who have told me the entire time that Bismarck is a good ship, you need to check it out, like, no, before this update, the Bismarck was not a good ship. If you played it and did well, that speaks more to you than it does the ship. But it was not good before this update. Now, I would say it's decent. I'm not going to say it's good, but it is decent. And the tankiness and allowing you, it's so useful now, where before it necessarily wasn't. The unfortunate side of things, we lose one Bismarck to another Bismarck ram. I think it was. Either way, 2 people die in a ram there. I'm going to try to focus this guy down. And you might already notice, we're up to 32 hits on our secondaries already. And they're not necessarily small hits either. Like, you can see the damage going up when your secondaries are hitting. Or at least when the 150s are hitting. The 105s on the Bismarck still pretty lackluster, but they're 105mm guns. We're in ships, you know. But where you see the most effectiveness is against cruisers and destroyers. Cruisers and destroyers against these secondaries really, really notice the difference. And being on the receiving end of secondaries from battleships in cruisers and destroyers, it is now noticeable. Okay? Before, I haven't tried it in my bolty yet, but before I would take my bolty out and I would sit there while this guy in the Bismarck would just pepper me with secondaries, and I would penetrate him with my AP and just rip him apart. You guys have all seen the video. But now I figure that'll probably change. You're not going to be able to just park there in a cruiser and pepper somebody when their secondaries are lighting you up, because their secondaries will light you up. Especially the 150s. So, with that in mind, we are going to make a mistake here in this match, and that is going to be very apparent in the very near future. But we do our best to rectify it, and the Bismarck bails me out a little bit in this one. Bismarck, everybody knows it's tanky. Okay, it is tanky, even though it does have the weakness that American and German battleships have, which is the ridiculous amount of HP that is allocated to the superstructure of these ships. You lose a lot of hit points when people are shooting at your superstructure. However, the Bismarck, on a map like this, a very small map, you're not allowing people to get citadels on you. They can do a lot of damage to you in single salvos, like we just got hit by the Iowa over there. That's the mistake that I made. I am now basically really poorly angled versus an Iowa and a Jean Bart. Jean Bart, the best AP as far as consistent damage in the game. Maybe not citadels everything, even though it very well can. But the AP is able to put up stupid numbers of damage every salvo, even when it's not, as you can see. It just did more damage to me in that salvo without a citadel than the Iowa did across the map. Now, we lose a turret temporarily. We go ahead, repair that. We're going to start reversing and opening the angle up a little bit to hopefully negate some of this damage. We have just lost half our hit points to these 2 ships very quickly. Now that we're starting to angle a little bit better, that's going to change. Our superstructure has got to be getting pretty close to being saturated, so they're not going to be able to get as much damage anymore off of that. But we do finish off the Jean Bart. I mean, they can only sit broadside to us for so long. We will eventually hit them hard enough. But the Bismarck's guns and the Bismarck secondaries are finally viable, which means this ship is no longer the worst battleship in the game. Just take that into consideration. This ship is no longer the worst battleship in the game. Watch this shot. Before, this is a 10-kilometer shot with just the rear guns on a Miyoko. We take the shot. Now remember, that's 4. At least one of them hit the mountain, and we get 3 hits. We would have probably hit all 4 shells there. That didn't happen before, even with dispersion builds. So there have definitely been some changes to the main batteries as well as the secondaries for the Bismarck this match. I didn't see anything for the main batteries in the patch notes, but I definitely feel a difference in the main batteries since the update. But as you can see, our team has finally pushed up and helped us. We are pushing through the mid, and now we are engaging in Iowa, who is backing off, and there is a Wichita right around the corner. So we're going to try to get ourselves... There's also a Bismarck behind that Iowa who is shooting at us now. So we've got an island up ahead. We're going to try to use that island to protect ourselves a little bit from limiting who can shoot us. And we're going to test the secondary's effectiveness against the Wichita. Now remember, Wichita, Baltimore have the exact same armor. The exact same 27mm armor. So the amount of damage that this Wichita is going to take from our secondaries is going to show us how much damage I can expect in my Baltimore. And you will see that it is definitely not sustainable. You will not be able to sit in the secondary range of a Bismarck in a cruiser. You know, Wichita, Balti, they have some of the best armor cruisers get. So, I mean, Alaska, Zuma, and maybe Edinburgh are two that could argue that. I know that the French have spaced armor, so maybe that'll help with the secondaries a little bit. But needless to say, as you can see, we are getting multiple hits on the Wichita, and each time they do hit, you see damage. Whether it's 200-300 damage when they hit, it's still damage that they're taking very quickly, even while you reload. And of course, when you reload HE, because he's bow tanking you and you can't overmatch him, he takes a huge chunk off of him as well. And I mean, he's not able to survive it. You just can't sit there anymore. And that is something that has been missing in this game. So thank you, Wargaming, for listening. As always, you guys know I love the developers of World of Warships Legends. They have done a great job up to this point. There's a few exceptions out there with overpowered ships and this and that. But for the majority of everything that goes on in the game, I enjoy the changes that they make, and they obviously listen to us as we get another good salvo off, hitting most of the shells that we fired. We fired 8 shells, we hit 6 of them. Not every one of them did damage, but we hit 6 of the 8 shells. So 110,000 damage, not a barn burner by any measure, but we got to see the secondaries in action. We got to see the Bismarck take hits and survive, and we also got to see just me having a decent time in the Bismarck. So, in closing, I just want to say, yes, the Bismarck is finally viable. And on that bombshell, if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.